One of my fondest memories was actually before we got to wear the black blazers. Sure, Mr. Cochran has never told the story of the van ride back from Auburn, Alabama, when we dreamed up the Arch Society. We'd been over there for the UGA Auburn Better Relations Day, and we saw a group of students who were in these god-awful, ugly orange blazers. But it turns out that they were our hosts for the rest of the afternoon. They did a wonderful job, and on the van ride back from Auburn, we decided that we wanted to do something like that, and we thought that we could do it much better, and so the product became the Arch Society. My time with the Arch Society was interesting because we were building. The first group, we basically had to go out and find people to apply, which, you know, is amazing what the application process and the number of applicants are now. But at that time, we had to find people to apply, and we had just a great deal of uncertainty. We were still trying to find our way on campus. We had to try to go out and beg for assignments. We had to, try to find service hours. So when you think of the difference of today, it's a real source of pride for us that we're there from the early days who had to work really hard just to find things for the Arch Society to do. Okay. There were another of options we were looking at for names, but as soon as Mr. Cochran came up with the Arch Society, it just stuck and it was perfect.
I was hired to replace Mr. Cochran. We had to keep his memory alive. We always had his chair in place of honor because there were nights he would just come on by on a Thursday night if he had an easier day at work, and he'd bring his wife Frances there and she'd be reading a book in the corner. But there were times when he would still come to our meetings, and the chair was there to always remember him, always remember his presence, because when he came to an Arch Society meeting, it was like a religious experience. It really was. It was like going to church. He would, and it wasn't because it was still secular in nature what he would talk about, but it was still very inspirational. He would bring quotes to read to us. He would tell us, parables and stories and just things that would just inspire you to want to be a better person. And those Thursday meetings, when we did have his presence at every meeting, that's what you came away with. And I think that's why those early years were so all about Mr. Cochran's presence and his memory and his spirit, was because of what he gave us in those early years. And I think that bonded us and made us such a tight group. And then Mr. Cochran kind of knew that he was going to be entering the retirement years. He had been busy with student government for a long time and was needing to step down a little bit from the day-to-day Arch Society management. So he had told me when they hired me that we were going to co-advise for a year. I was going to stay under his wing that 96, 97 year. And then the 97, 98 year I was on my own. So that was a big year that we did a lot for Mr. Cochran in recognizing him as the founder of the Arch Society. That was the year that the chair, as y'all remember, the leather chair, that was purchased and presented to him, and we presented him the Tom Cochran Service Award that year at the chapel, and he was shocked. He had no idea. There was a big stink one year. We went to Auburn, and the guys loved the orange blazers, and of course we weren't going to have an orange blazer at Georgia. So some of the guys that were pretty vocal in the group wanted red blazers instead of black. I know. And Mr. Cochran was like, no way. There's a reason why the blazer is black. It represents the color of the arch. It's just a very, symbol of the black blazer, and we've always called it the black blazer. So there was no way we were going to change to a red blazer. But to satisfy some of the wanting it to be a little bit more different, the men got the patch. And that was, Toby Carr was one of the key people that kind of designed and helped with the whole patch idea. And the girls did not get the patch for several years, just the boys did. We started singing the alma mater at the end of Arch Society meetings probably around 97. It wasn't early on, and we didn't always do it. It was just a tradition. Some of those really, like I said, the real vocal people like Toby Carr and Palmer that just, they had a lot of enthusiasm for the Arch Society. They started some of those traditions, actually. And then it became sort of an elected thing, supposedly, and it now is kind of a place of honor. We were at the alumni house. I was just telling Meredith outside. It was kind of cool because I remember on Thursday nights, the Redcoat band would be practicing on the practice fields right next behind Stegman, you know, where the, I don't know if even if the football practice fields are still there, but full Redcoat practices would be right there. And where the Alumni House sat is right where some of the new athletic facilities are now. But we would be in our Arch Society meetings on Thursdays at 6 o'clock and hear the Redcoat band practicing. So it was really cool because you'd be in there, you know, we'd be singing the alma mater and they'd be playing it outside, and you just, that fall just, you know, just bring, if I heard it now, I would just instantly be brought right back to being in those. But then they tore down the Alumni House, so we had to leave. Took our chair with us. And then we moved to the academic building, which is now the Holmes Hunter Academic Building. We weren't always on the field. We fought and fought for years to get back on the field, and it probably took us until '97 to get back on the field. Those first, from 92 to 97, it was spotty when we could be on the field, and we kind of had to beg to do it. And now it's something that you guys get to do and you don't even think twice about. But there were years that were very difficult to get on the field because they limited how many people were able to on the field, and it just wasn't traditional yet. It was something that we kind of had to find a little niche and something to do. And so then we talked the cheerleading coach into letting us hold the banners so the cheerleaders could run through them. I don't know if you guys still get to do that, but you know, that was something that we had to find our way to get in and find a purpose for us down there, because it meant so much to the members that got to have that assignment.
So I remember applying, and I remember that some of my roommates were on some type of retreat the weekend that I was supposed to get my letter, but I basically stayed home and watched for the mailman to come up because I knew it was an old school letter, and I wanted to, you know, I wanted to be able to run out there and get it. I think I was a little more excited about that than I was my college application. But I went out to the mailbox and saw it in there, and it was like an overcast day. I guess people were, I don't know, I felt like I was the only person out there in the parking lot, and got the letter and just opened it and saw it and just started screaming and was just so excited. And so I ran inside, and it was kind of like a townhouse, so we had these 3 levels, so I ran all the way up the first level and then said, oh, I'm so excited, I'm going to run all the way up the second. Then I went all the way back down and then all the way back down again. I was just running up and down the stairs just because I was home alone, and I was really excited.
Oh my gosh, it was an event. Okay, so we get this bulldog, it's completely white, and I'm thinking, well, what are we gonna wear? You know, what are we gonna put it in? And one person recommended, I think it was probably, I don't know, maybe Matt or something, he said we need to paint the uniform on it. And I'm thinking, okay, so there's all these creases and crevices, I'm not an artist at all, how are we gonna do this? But it actually turned out really good. I think we spent about 2 days working on it, and it turned out pretty well.
Sons of Italy, which had been the place that everybody went after dinner, ended up closing. And we wanted to, exec really wanted to give some opportunity for the group to have some input and to really have the group sort of have input in where the entire group went, because there was a real focus on the entire group going to dinner after the meeting. And so we started this whole thing where everybody wrote down the place they wanted to go and put it in the crystal bowl that we would get from Dance Marathon every year because of the money that we raised. So they would put the things in the bowl and somebody would draw out the name, and that's where we would go to dinner. And I think that's sort of morphed over time, but there's always a dinner decision that's a part of that meeting.
All right, and I never will forget, and to this date I haven't had a interview as intimidating as the Arch Society interview, but I'll never forget when Mr. Cochran asked me, would you be able to wear the black blazer? And I'll never forget how excited I was, and I looked him dead in the eyes and said, absolutely.
Went through the interview process, and as I was going through, I just realized that it was exactly what I wanted, and it was exactly what I was looking for, a way to meet people outside my major, meet people out of other organizations I was in, and just found that even through the interviews, the individual passions that each person had just really shone through in the way that they talked to me, in the way that they interviewed me, and how you could tell there was a genuine concern for the future and the legacy of the organization. That's the thing, is that Arch, I felt like Arch gave me the confidence to really be myself around everyone. Like, who cares? I felt like we all celebrated each other in different ways. Yeah, I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. So tell me what you want, what you really, really want. I want an A, I want an R, I want a C, I want an H. I really want to be on the Arch Society. And
when I started to think about it, reflect a little bit on my Arch experience, and I was thinking about this as I walked up the steps. So many of my friends and people who, you know, just as you guys, so you spend over half of your college career in the Arch Society, either as a prospective Arch member or a man or woman of the Arch, and so the application process, the interview process, and then the trainings that happen, and then you're finally inducted in April. And so when you look at the time and the years you serve at the University of Georgia, you spend the majority of your college experience on the Arch Society. And so if you really invest in the Arch Society and the people of the Arch Society, you cannot help but be touched or influenced in one way or another. Some of my closest friends to this day were men and women of the Arch. I can't tell you how many weddings and you know, baby showers now and baby parties that we're, you know, going to and participating with people from Arch Society.
I have to say that the Arch Society was definitely one of the most memorable parts of my experience at UGA. I truly believe in Mr. Cochran's statement that I met people I would not have met, went places I would not have gone, and saw the university from completely different eyes than I would have seen it. Other than obviously the friendships that I made with the other members of the Arch Society.
But for me, what was different and what I hadn't seen in all the other organizations and activities I had done before was this idea of humble service. And you know, I guess I'd heard a lot about humble service growing up and what that is, but I don't think I'd ever really seen humble service until the Arch Society, and didn't really understand what that meant and how to translate that from this abstract phrase into actual actions until the Arch Society, and until I realized, you know, the people that I was in the room with on Thursday night meetings, you know, this group of people are doing incredible things all over campus in very different ways. And yet when they put this black blazer on and stand, you know, by a door for 3 hours and open it when people come by, or hand a program to people when they come by, you know, they're not doing that as, you know, Panhellenic president or a student body president or whatever they are in other capacities. You know, they're literally just doing that as a humble servant of the university. And, you know, Arch Society was one of the very few, probably the only organization I was involved in where everyone in the organization I felt like deserved to have a really big ego, and yet no one did, because of what, you know, Arch Society taught us and what we're constantly doing. So that was the one thing that really stuck with me leaving Arch Society, that I hope I've continued to carry with me. But I always think back, whenever I think about Arch Society, I always think about that. And
I don't know that I took for granted in terms of advisory. I don't think I took it for granted, but I think the thing that we don't really believe or understand is that the quote that Mr. Cochran says about what the students and members of the group get to do also applies to the advisors. And that was something that I really came to appreciate, because I knew that because I was associated with this group and I had the privilege to be associated with it, that I also was being developed as a person, as a professional, where I was getting to meet people that I might not have otherwise met, and see people that I might not have otherwise or see places, rather, that I might not have otherwise seen, and really view the institution from a lens that a lot of people don't get to, and that's very special.
The fact that the Arch Society has been around for 20 years is good, and I didn't really think about it until I got the message. Where do I see it in the next 20 years? Just doing more of what it's been doing. The University of Georgia, as y'all all know, is wonderful. And I can't even talk about it without getting all teared up. But it's fun. It's a fun place. It's a good place. And I think the Art Society will continue to be instrumental in getting the word out to the world that the University of Georgia is better.